Oh, so FYI, Mitch and I are working on getting the past meeting recordings uploaded to the YouTube channel. We lacked on this a little bit, but I'm trying to get right access to the YouTube channel so I can upload it myself when I get into office one of these days. Uploading from home is apparently very slow. So I acknowledge that we're working on it, and I'll let folks know once that's all available. Okay, so topic for today, performance tests. Mitch, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, so you may remember that our engineering.istio.io site has a section called performance tests. We recently had an internal bug at Google because some of the tools that were running on the performance test cluster had known CVEs in them and needed to be updated. And when we started poking around in the cluster, which I believe was at perf.istio.io, what we found was that the performance tests had not actually run since Istio 110. So we've gone ahead and shut that cluster down in the meantime as not immediately valuable since 110 is no longer under support. I'm working on getting perf.istio.io just to redirect to istio.io. So that there's no 404 messages for users or anything along those lines. But in the meantime, I thought maybe we ought to have performance tests. I'm not sure if there are perhaps other performance test suites that we do run on each release, or if we were depending on these particular tests to indicate if there's a performance regression. Is anyone familiar? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, we'll see if any of the performance people are on the call. I don't know who they all are.
I know.
I can tell you a little bit about what I know. And so I'm assuming these are the performance tests that are basically contained within the tools repo and the performance subdirectory.
I think that's where they were.
Yeah.
Yes, that looks right.
And I know we actually do run these on all of the releases because the results are posted, or I shouldn't say posted, are presented in istio.io.
Do you know where?
I'd have to find the link to the page, but let me see if I can do that quick.
So Mitch, this is a set, right?
I'm not sure this is what we turned off.
Yeah, now I don't know if the performance team, when they run this, actually, spin up their own new cluster when they do it. I don't know enough about how this is run. I suspect if it's like the load test, there's some scripts in there that, and I haven't looked at this since I just had seen that this was up there. But there's some scripts that basically typically spin up clusters on GKE, and then the test would run. So I'm half expecting maybe that cluster was just left over from the 1.10 runs.
When you say the performance team I don't think we have a working group on that anymore. Are there particular people in test and release that take responsibility for this stuff?
I'd have to go look. If I look in community, there is a subgroup, if you will, that had performance people in it.
Okay.
So if I look at the teams, YAML file and Istio community, there is a group of people that were tagged with the performance. It was basically who was in the performance work group at the time that they just sort of became a subgroup of test and release.
Question, on the Istio page, it says performance summary for Istio 115. So that was presumably updated by someone.
Correct.
it something automated that is done, or is it something manual? Can we trace the history, or?
John might know more about who runs this. But I thought it was run on each release, and then those numbers are put in here.
Looks like Greg, you've got your hand.
Has Sam been the one that's been primarily running for each of the releases
He
for
runs
at least load
qualification
tests? Yeah.
Yeah, he runs qualification, which is yet another subdirectory in there. But I believe that these are probably somewhat similar to that. But I don't know who actually runs them.
So I just took a look at teams.yaml. I don't see a team or work group
Okay.
that's specifically related to performance.
Let's let me look here. I thought there was one under test and release when is where it ended up, but
Let's see.
And maybe it went away since.
Test and release just has members and repos. I don't see any subgroup under test and release.
You are correct.
So Eric, maybe you and I can dig into this. I'm looking at the source for the page that you linked to, the latency for Istio 115. I'm not seeing any changes since December, which doesn't fit the 115 timeframe. So something somewhere is not lining up. But maybe
it could very well be we're missing something.
Okay, I looked at the template, and it's basically saying performance summary for Istio, and then it's a template which populates the current version of Istio. But the text is actually hard coded, so there is no update per se. It's just, whatever happened in December 21 or whenever it was run, it stays there, and it has a feeling that it's actually the current release, when in fact it's probably 110 or some older release.
Well, December wouldn't be 110, but.
Well, actually, the last time the images were updated was November 25th, 2020.
Well.
Yeah, the page is clearly completely out of date. I mean, it's some static stuff, but it looks recent because it's templated to release name to basically every release we change the title, but it keeps the same.
Well, in that case, I don't think we have a problem. We can just leave that indefinitely.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, so
it's a problem. I mean, we still, some people still run manual tests, so it's not as bad as it sounds. It's just that documentation is not updated, automation is not in place. It's not. We have
right. I think we just need to make sure we. Yeah, I think we just need to make sure we update the. Mitch and I can talk about it, or maybe involve you, Costin. But I think the comment here is I think we just need to rerun 4.1.15 and add this into the release manager's notes to have somebody run it for each release to make sure that it gets updated.
I think it's safest to have release managers run it until we automate it again, because automation was pretty complicated, very kind of shaky. And
yeah, I know we don't do qualification automated either, although we've talked about it in a couple of meetings, and I know Stuart was looking at doing some more documentation there. So so in the terms of the performance stuff, I think yes, we need to do that. Just as a side note, quick side note, there is a benchmark, some benchmark testing that we do on every commit. But that doesn't appear to be what we're talking about here. We're talking about the overall performance tests that would normally be run at each release.
And those benchmarks are done by Prow?
The benchmarks are, they're just jobs like, other pre and post submit jobs.
Okay.
Maybe we can link to the result or extract some numbers, because since they are Proud test, is probably they have, if larger, then it doesn't actually give, basically a baseline or what changed.
Yeah, for the benchmark ones, just look at Prow bench test, Prow/bench test.sh, I think, in the Istio directory, and it's all called by make file targets.
Okay.
Which are then invoked via Prow. But that's benchmarking, which yes is performance, and I didn't know what you were going to talk about here. So, but yes, I think it sounds like we need to do something with the performance testing, if you will.
So Eric, if we need RMs to do this, let's add it to the release management wiki. I just looked through here. The only thing that we have here is just testing the base image. It still doesn't mention anything about benchmark or performance at all.
Yes, we can put it in there somewhere if we talk about qualification testing. I'm assuming we mentioned there's something that they should run qualification testing.
It just says that during the release, test the base image of Istio for vulnerabilities and build a new image. Yeah, you and I should probably take this offline with the current set of release managers and beef up this page here.
Yeah, so let's take it to do a separate to do that between you and I, Francis, to do that, and then Mitch and I will talk about the other one.
Hey, hi, Ali here. I wanted to add something. Can I speak or?
Yep.
Please do.
Yeah, sure. I mean, thanks. I wasn't expecting the performance part being discussed today. So we have done extensive tests in both control plane and data plane for different payload sizes and sidecar profile. So I don't know, are you guys planning to share like a centralized location? Because the one that is available on upstream, right, which is the performance and benchmark, it just we need more details specifically on the system side, like which system profile you guys use, so that we can align. Like at least we are seeing similar latency with Envoy, that it adds up in the 90th percentile. But we have like we ran it with different CPU memory combinations and concurrencies to make sure that we have that captured with different payload sizes. So I mean, we can share as well, but if there is something common, we can align that way. We also use FortiO for benchmarking. So just want to bring it up. If
Ollie, you used the word "we." Who is that? Is that who do you work for?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, from eBay. Sorry, I'm from eBay. So
okay, nice to have you.
Okay.
So in the chat, you can see Steve Landau linked to the Perf Test that we're supposed to be running, which would have populated those charts the last time that they were refreshed, which was quite a long time ago. You should be able to find in there exactly which profiles we're running and the details of how we're testing it. I believe we're using the FortiO library. But overall, I think long term, I mean, there are a few people who aren't here, but I'm guessing that what we need in this area is really someone to drive it. The last time that we had someone really focused on performance was several years ago on Mandar's team. Mandar is gone. The people who worked on that are gone. So I suspect we do not have an owner for this space. If it's something that eBay is interested in and can help us with, it would be awesome to have you participate in that way.
Sure. So I can share some link and I'll get back based on our timelines too. But just want to make sure that we have that, like we have the huge catalog of like what will be the profile there, but we can compare what upstream has and then take it from there.
Yeah. And feel free to drop any links you want to talk about in terms of performance in this agenda doc. You should have the ability to at least propose changes, maybe make changes on your own.
I don't know. I have this document, but I don't know if I'll take an approval from my team to just
Of
make sure
course.
this is public. But I can share it if you want. Just want to give a quick highlight if I can share, but just want to give some gist.
Sure.
Can I quickly share?
I try see if you can access this. So can you see this doc and can you make edits? Because this is on the Istio community drive, and you should have access already.
Francis, I think he's asking to share his screen.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of
I'll
course.
share the link after consent. I don't know about that open source. Like can we share as is the document, or we need to edit something? But at least from the result perspective, sure, I can. Just a second.
Meanwhile,
While you're
Ethan-
pulling that up, can I say something? My team is planning to do some performance testing work. We're mostly interested in the performance of ambient mesh, but I think the work to build the testing framework is not unique to that. So if we do kind of build out an effort to improve the old performance testing framework, that might be something that we'd be interested in collaborating on. So that's all I had to say.
And Ethan, that's the Google ambient mesh team. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the Google Mesh data path team.
Okay.
Steven's leading that, by the way.
I think there's some sharing issues. Just a second.
Hey, this is Sakari. I'm from Intel, and the performance is pretty high on our agenda as well. So I would like to participate on this benchmarking activity as well. I was actually working with the not anymore working website and that with some Google engineer who left the project. So I'm pretty familiar with how the system works there, and it's pretty difficult and error prone. So I think if the community is open, I think we can kind of try to come up with some more better solutions. So I'm open to join that activity as well. So if you have any,
should we form a? Yeah, I know we just did the combined work group thing, but given this is pretty high on everyone's list, we form a performance work group. Reform.
There was, I mean, at least in the Slack there is a channel. I don't know if there's a working group or is it active but I think we need to reboot that.
Yeah, I looked in teams.yaml. I don't see a performance work group in Slack.
So
Yeah, there was one, and I recall it got moved under test and release, I thought at one point, but it appears it's even gone from there. So I would certainly entertain doing a reboot of it. We could probably find, all of the docs. I'm sure they still have their folder within the community.
I think for now, let's if we've got the existing Slack channel to collaborate on, we've got a few people who are interested in using that channel to collaborate. I think we've got what we need. If eventually that needs to be turned into a work group with formal leads and whatnot, we can tackle that when the time comes. But for now, it sounds like everything we need is there.
Thanks, guys. So I'll just quickly update the details. So I was looking specifically these details, all the system details that we ran. I mean, we ran with 1.10. We are still on 1.10. So we are planning for future upgrades, but we have captured all the profile details here, like what's the baseline server and egress based on upstream. Pretty much the terminology is there. What default circuit breaking settings we use to run the profile. And this is what we needed because different customer has different asks, right? That we have this payload. Some customers are like a big, like they have a big download requirements where we new what do you say, Hadoop and other things. So the payload size are bigger. So we wanted to benchmark with different profile and see what outcome you get. So we did with all the profile, with 1K payload, and which we have defined different profile like A, B, C, D, E, where we offer as a 2 CPU sidecar with 4, 6, 8, and 16, right? And we double the memory that way. So I wanted something similar if upstream is also doing that on the performance benchmark result for every release, so that at least we get some idea that what's being added, and at least from the graph plots we know that how much each envoy adds. Like we even went extreme to see that okay, one envoy adds around 0.5 whatever millisecond of that latency. So it's expected that many envoys in the hops, you will see that much impact in the latency. So one is latency and one is throughput part. So depending on the concurrency as well, I can share this number, like we can make it public as well, but just want to make sure that we use our internal LNP framework, but underlying it's FortIO with different settings. So these are all variables that can be passed to FortIO. So the framework tweaks and runs the reports that way, depending on different runs. So this is what we had, like for two, like we see different bumps, like the moment your payload size are higher, what CPU profile you should use, so that customer can choose based on that okay, fine, if you're going this high, you need better to choose this sidecar profile for your app. So we have this, I mean, yeah, so we wanted to just align on this front. Yeah, I stopped presenting, but I'll make this public after discussing with my team, and so that I think the plots can be public as long as nobody has concerns. But yeah, so we are also exploring the NIC saturation other part for the gateway, right? Just to make sure that with like 40 gig NICs or 100 gig coming up, like what profile we use there to make sure at least the gateways are also saturated full throttle. So those are some items out of that.
And you have this automated you run it automated with some clusters you have?
Yes, we have our own LNP suite for different conditions. Mesh is one, so we use the same. But underlying it's FortIO, so I mean we have templated that way so that it pretty much aligns with upstream. So,
and one question, is it possible to run them on pre-releases? I mean, do you track whenever we have a beta release, do you test it?
no, so right now we just went extreme with 1.10. This pretty much we use in production. So I think we'll leverage the same when we do future upgrades. But at least we are also missing this framework. So we got this in a working state because with more and more workloads moving in mesh, we had to answer all these questions, like what will be the latency impact, throughput impact. So we ran all these extensive benchmarks. So thanks for raising this today. So I got a chance to just bring it up.
It's awesome. I think again, if you can automate it, then just publish. If you can get permission to publish the results and run nightly or pre-releases, it will be awesome, because the more tests, the better. It doesn't have to be exactly the test that we had in the past, and you seem to get far more data than we had in the test. So it's more dimensions are very useful for performance testing.
Yeah, sounds good. That's fine. I'll update the link in the doc once I'll make this doc public. No problem, and we'll pick it up from there.
That sounds great. And Ali, if you're not already a member of our Slack, you can join at slack.istio.io. And we have a performance and scalability channel. I imagine Sakari and Stephen will be coordinating their work in that location.
Mitch, is this the one? Hashtag.
What is the hash?
I think so. I can't quite make it out on your screen, but I think so.
It's hashtag perf and scalability.
Yep, that's the one.
Sounds good. And we also have some control plane runs for all the different criteria. My other colleague is also there. I think we'll make sure those results are also presented, so we can collaborate.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Okay, shall we move on to the next topic? All right, Ariane.
Yeah, sure. I'll present my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay. So it's not a very big doc. So right now we have a feature of like claim-based routing, your claim-based routing, and it's in experimental phase right now. And we want to promote it to alpha. And there is no API changes required in that, because like there is nothing with the your APIs. It is like we do something with the virtual service and we leverage virtual service for that. So there is no API changes required for that. And there are some existing integration tests, which test like most of the scenarios. So the required work for this one would be like there is few tests which are missing from the virtual service side. We are not testing the prefix. So there are three different things in the virtual service, like exec, prefix, and regex. So we just test the exec and regex part. We don't test the prefix part. So this is the one required work for this. And in the documentation part, so right now we have a task where it is mentioned it's an experimental feature. So we should update it to the alpha feature. So not much work required for this thing. Do you guys have any questions or concerns with this? So here the main work would be like add few more integration tests, update the docs, and add one graduation proposal in Istio enhancement.
This looks reasonable.
Cool. Yeah, that's all. Like I don't have that many things to share. So if no one has any concerns, should we like move it to alpha?
Yes, go ahead.
So on the alpha promotion, do we have the promotion tracked in our enhancement suite?
Yes, we do have it. And the thing is, for alpha, we do not require any kind of performance or benchmark testing. It's
Right.
like for beta. So that's why I didn't add it here. Probably like when we move it to beta, we would do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I would just make sure that you update the appropriate YAML there, and then or YAMLs, and then that would get approved by I think TOC, right? And then
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's not yet there in one of the YAMLs. Probably I have to add a new entry and then probably get approved from TSC, right?
yeah, if there isn't a template already there, then yes, we'd need to create a new one. And then I would assume that there should be one there if there is a line in for it already in the documentation page. But if there isn't a line for it already, then yes, we probably need to create another one.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, you can ping either I or Miriam John, who was the one who was creating a lot of them earlier. If you have some questions about that.
Okay. I think it's not there probably because I remember I checked it once.
Okay.
I will check with you guys if it's not there. I will.
Yeah, I think you can just copy a template and name it, and then create the PR with that.
Sure. Good. Yeah, that's all. Thanks, guys.
All right. So we agreed to move this to alpha. And next topic is Costin about EDS training mode. Costin, do you want to present?
Can you present and
Hold on 1 second. And I'll
Please give me
resume.
okay, so some background info. There is a PR that is going on to API review about adding support for persistent sessions. Persistent sessions is basically load balancing. Instead of going to random or whatever least loaded workload, it has an override and it can go to, based on a cookie or header, go to a specific backend. And that's very commonly used, for Java, JSession ID, and a lot of other system support persistent sessions. And the typical usage is you have some applications that is designed to use persistent sessions. Java is a common example. And requests keep going to that particular backend. So you can keep state and you're ready to have a session. but after 15, 30 minutes, the sessions will expire. So at some point the session will expire. But you want for the session to last, so we don't interrupt it in the middle. So the way it is done is you modify the draining process to make the workloads when you agree to make them wait for half an hour, how long you need. Usually using the pre-stop hook. And you want, while the workload is draining, you want the behavior that existing sessions keep going which they should go to the draining workload, but all new sessions are redirected to non-draining, to healthy workloads. So then, if you keep it draining for an hour, then all sessions will migrate to the new versions, to the healthy, and then you can shut them down when the number of active sessions goes to 0. The problem is Istio doesn't support it today. I mean, Envoy has some special endpoint type draining. So we need to first of all take into account the detect the draining state, which is it was added to Kubernetes recently, so we can do that. In model, we need to add the new draining state, and in EDS response, we want to return it based on the presence of persistent Boolean for that particular cluster. So if the cluster is draining, then we send the extra draining endpoint. It will not affect backward compatibility because we only do it for people who opt into this behavior by setting the persistent session feature. There are some proposals in gRPC working project to support persistent sessions. As you know, we support proxyless gRPC, and that's maintained by the gRPC project. And they're adding, first of all, they're adding support for the same APIs that we're adding, and they're adding support for the draining endpoints, so they have the same behaviors that we want. There are some discussion on the side with John. There are some bad concerns, and I think the comments explain how we address them. Not enable for everything, just for the new workloads, new API. It's not very complicated or very risky. It's just there's a few extra if statements on endpoint watcher and adding the new Boolean and sending the endpoints. One thing that may be controversial and we need to discuss, recently in 1.14, I believe, there was a change to enable sending unhealthy endpoints to workloads, and that was a regression. It got reverted. Now it's behind the flag, and we need to figure out how we want to deal with unhealthy endpoints. Envoy today doesn't actually implement draining correctly. It's expecting them to be reported as unhealthy. So there is a bit of complication with Envoy. Probably it will be fixed in Envoy, but in 1.15, I don't know what's. So we may need to do some workaround for Envoy. For gRPC, it's clear they implemented properly with draining and all is good. So we may enable it only for proxyless gRPC. That's not yet clear and depends on what happens on Envoy side. But I want to make sure that people interested in persistent sessions get a chance to review this. Questions? And we are trying to get it in 1.15. So basically, in the next few weeks, I'll start working on the implementation. Again, gRPC is also trying to get it into the next release of gRPC. Yes, Greg.
Did you say 1.15 or 1.16?
1.16, next one, sorry.
Okay.
It moves so fast that it always gets stuck behind.
And with this proposal, the goal is to return endpoints in draining state?
Yes.
Okay.
If and only if the cluster is marked for persistent sessions. So for a regular cluster with normal load balancing, you don't want draining. You want them to go to all the others because the drain period will be very short. So for normal workloads, I don't know what is the default. I think we have 30 seconds or something like that as a default for drain interval. You don't want to keep sending draining. You don't want to send requests, keep sending requests to drain or unheld. But if you explicitly modify your workload to have a very, very long drain period, then we want to send the drain request to Envoy to gRPC. It's a very complicated subject and very controversial. I mean, there is a lot of discussion with cookies. I mean, Envoy implemented based on cookies, and they have a header override. There are a lot of if you look at the gRPC sites, they have a proposal and a very long discussion about the details of persistent. And our API also has a very long discussion. This document is only about the draining part of the persistence issue.
So the cookie is used as a credential, or what's the context for cookie?
Cookies, typically persistent sessions are implemented using cookies. Virtually everyone today implements them using cookies. I mean, Cloud Run, Java, almost everyone. There are some limitations, discussed in the bug where sometimes you need a header instead of cookie to if you want two tabs in browser to have different sessions, which is sometimes requested, and Envoy supports both. Our API supports both. There is a discussion, by the way, security. Right now, everything is only for mesh, not for ingress. When we start exposing this feature in ingress, there will be a very different issue because the cookies are not encrypted. Right now, it's plain text IP address. That's not good.
Is there any a security impact with this proposal?
It should not be any security implication for persistence. No, this proposal obviously doesn't have anything to do with security. It's just some endpoints that are draining being returned. But persistent sessions, especially in ingress, there will be a risk that some attacker will inject a cookie with an arbitrary IP. For Istio, it's not a problem because we don't trust anyways the IPs. We validate the certificates, so we use MTLS, so it should be mostly fine. And also the IP is restricted to the set that is returning EDS. So if you cannot actually redirect to an arbitrary IP. It needs to have a certificate, and it also needs to be in the EDS response.
Ian?
Yeah, so one question with this proposal, does that mean when the cluster is in the draining state, it can be in the ready state too? So the endpoint is ready and the endpoint is in draining state. That can happen, right? Because we are gonna handle these kind of scenarios, right? So what exactly is draining state?
So that's a very complicated process in Kubernetes, where if you do a rolling upgrade, the endpoint will be set will be marked as ready equal false and serving equal true, which that's their implementation. That's how they signal that you are doing a rolling upgrade. The endpoint is not in an unhealthy state really. It's just being terminated basically. They implemented with ready equal false because they had some backward compatibility issues as well. In the past, ready equal false was used to indicate that it's not ready, but they added this condition serving equal true to indicate that if you have old code that is looking at ready, you should stop sending requests to that backend because it's probably a normal. But if you know what you are doing, you can keep sending requests basically. So they have a way now. They modified the status in the endpoint slice and endpoint to allow some way to distinguish between the two states where you are doing the rolling upgrade, but your workload is still serving requests and is not in a bad state versus it's in a real bad state. I don't think I can explain it very well. Or I don't think they can explain it very well. The PR that implemented it in Kubernetes is also very confusing. But we found kind of a way to detect this state and to propagate it.
Okay, good, thanks.
This is a comment from Sanjay. I mean, he's also kind of getting a bit more details about this. Like I said, it was a very confusing feature. surprised we got it to a state where it can be implemented.
All right. So what is our conclusion on this?
Unless there are objections, people will put comments. If there's no objection, I'll have a PR.
What's the time frame? A week?
About 2 weeks, probably.
Okay, for community review.
Yeah. Then for the PR, to have the PR.
I'm saying, like, do we need a time window for the community review?
I don't think. I mean, if there are objections, they can put it on the PR, and I don't think we need
Okay.
process for this. I wrote the doc mainly before PR mainly because it's such a tricky business to it with training.
All right. Anything else on this topic? If not, I have just one quick topic here. So while I'm looking at teams.yaml, I noticed there are folks on there in working groups who have, at least to my knowledge, have left Google and presumably left the community. Do we have a process for cleaning up these folks? Do we just leave them there for a while, and do we do a yearly cleanup?
I don't think that we have a process for membership in the project, but for
We do have
maintainers and
rules.
working group leads, we do have a cleanup process.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Or-
Specifically
say-
the working group.
I was gonna say, I don't think there's any automation, but if you actually look in the community docs, right, I believe for membership, it's 180 days. So if they haven't done anything in 180 days, I think we say they may lose their membership. Now, my first comment will be, before we even get to that, is in terms of membership stuff, I know that they're working on the steering committee nominations and voting coming up. So the steering committee may have some say about who they want to be members or not, because I don't know how that drives into their who gets to vote and not. Right? Because I think anybody who's a member gets a vote for those. So it might be something to bring up with the steering committee for that. In terms of work groups, I know we just say extended period of time. Do you know something about that, Mitch? Is there some period, is it 6 months that work group leads should think about doing something?
I would think that it would be a stricter standard than that for membership, but I don't have any specifics.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I just
no
looked in the
automated
community.
process. So if someone hasn't contributed in 180 days, do we have any automated process to remove them?
No.
Okay, so it's totally manual.
Yeah. I think there may have been something thought about at one point in time, but I don't know that we ever really did anything with it.
We do have a dashboard on the Eng site that shows everyone's last contribution. So
I was
we
gonna
might
say-
be able to use that as a proxy.
I was going to say the ngistio.io site did have something about this, but containers, it says recently inactive. But I don't know what the coding is for that. I guess it says under members, it did say 180 days.
Is
And
this
90 days
sortable?
for maintainers.
Is this list sortable by their last activity? So the last active is when they made an actual contribution.
I can
assuming
help getting access to the underlying data, sorting it by the date, as well as listing everyone by their GitHub handle rather than by their name as listed on their GitHub profile.
Okay.
Yeah, Eric, I can help with this, and we can identify a cutoff. And then as long as steering approves, we can pursue cleaning that up.
All right. So to be brought up in the next steering group meeting.
Yep, which is a week from tomorrow.
Sounds good. All right. Does anyone else have any topics to discuss?
Yeah, just hi Ali here. I have one PR to discuss. That's the main reason I joined. For the inbound listener, I got some comments, but I don't know why. We are using this internally, but I was trying to see if we can, we can streamline this in the upstream as well. So for the inbound listener, right? So we have our custom use case where customer doesn't expose their one of the ports or some of the ports via service. So you cannot wire it up via the virtual service and the gateway objects. So we use in a sidecar ingress. The reason is we allow for those particular ports, we allow a permissive mode for MTLS, right? So that won't be there in the service. So because of that, what happens is in the current Istio, if you expose a sidecar listener through ingress listener, then it will always be on be a priority, right? So service ports will be ignored. So whatever is there in the data plane port, which is exposed by a service, say some other ports, everything is routed to pass-through cluster as a TCP. So we want that is, even though it's a regular HTTP traffic, and all matrix and everything will break, because you'll not see all the matrix as a regular HTTP matrix. So there is no data plane impact, but if you'll see the access logs, everything goes to the pass-through cluster. So that's what we are thinking, that is it possible to just merge, even if you declare something in sidecar ingress and something in service, it should just merge and create the inbound listener for both. So if the sidecar has the same port number, I mean, obviously it is it will always take the precedence as expected in the current code. But I don't know if there is, I don't think there is a major API chain. That's what I wanted to bring it up. But if you want, I can expose it as an environment variable or something as a default, to turn the flag off or on. But do you guys have any other suggestion? Because
can't you use two separate ports for ingress and for sidecar?
No, I mean we can for the environment variable, just to see if we want to merge ingress port for sidecar and the service ports.
No, I understand what you're saying. That, my concern is we have already very complicated code and logic, and merging is very scary to me, especially given. I understand it may be only enabled with an environment variable and in special cases, but it may be safer and cleaner and much better if we keep them separated and you just use separate ports and we don't, we can validate or we can warn if people have this situation. But I'm not sure if we try to do merging, if we're not going to break something else in the process. That's really what I'm scared of.
Yeah, so that's why I also asked the same question. What was the original intent? Like, if merging, I mean, what would break, right? I mean, I was not aware, because so far I didn't find any major concern. But anyways, I wanted to raise it with you guys. So I mean, we are using this version internally to support that, but I wanted to make sure if we are in the right track to take it, to at least allow merging, because it's a valid feature as well, right? Like, just to make sure what are declaring sidecar plus service, it should merge.
So I'm not sure if that's intent. You're using sidecar.ingress section in sidecar.
Yes.
I mean, at least when we originally implemented Sidecar, it was more like an override. I mean, it was intended to define new ports that are not specified in Ingress URI. I don't think we ever considered it as a way to kind of have a port that is, if you have a service, then you would use whatever is generated for that service, and only if you have something that is not covered by service, you would use Sidecar. It's not,
Yeah, so but then the problem is, so that's where the problem is, right? So that the service port is being treated as a through pass-through cluster in Envoy. So that's what we were under the impression that Sidecar, if it's not in Sidecar, it should if it's not in service, they are using it through Sidecar Ingress, right? But this breaks the service port, right? Like where service is exposing the data plane port, and say whatever your traffic is, it doesn't create the listeners and the clusters on the Envoy side for this part.
Oh, that may be a different problem. So you're saying that you have a service on port 8080 and it's going to pass through cluster?
Yes, if you declare a sidecar with ingress on say 8081, so you declare a sidecar with new ingress port, right? Say 8081. So service 8080 goes through pass-through cluster. So that's why we thought
that may be a bug. Yeah, I mean, it may be a security bug. That's definitely should not happen.
Yeah, so that's why we proposed this patch that merging should be okay. You can declare n number of ports, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5 there. So I mean, yeah, sidecar. If sidecar declares 8080, yes, it takes precedence. That's what the current feature is. So if you declare 8080 in sidecar, that works. That's okay. But the point is, if it's not, it's the other ports are in pass-through. That's what maybe.
That's a bug. That's clearly a bug. I mean, it's a security bug even, because it's that if you have any authorization policy on 8080 and it's becoming if it's becoming a pass-through, then it's clearly not working as intended.
Aliska, can you prepare a design document so we can have the context and the detailed like a workflow? What are the security impact? Can we review it before merging this PR? Yeah.
Sure. Is there a template I can document it with all the?
I think there are many Istio design documents. You can follow their format or.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, in the Istio community, there is a template that I use as well. Francis, can you remove the line with causing concern, because that's a very, I'm not concerned about it. I now understand what is the problem, and it's a clear bug.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, I'll raise it and share. So is just update all the links here only, right, in this agenda, or like?
I mean, once you have it, you can just add it into next week's list agenda to review the design doc or whatever is ready.
Okay, sounds good.
And we can do it in this meeting.
All right.
In the bug, please make it very clear that a service port that normally without if you don't have any sidecar ingress, then the behavior is that we generate a dedicated listener, and if you want them, it's done. So that's clearly bad, because we lose all the settings on that port.
Yeah, I'll dump all the commands and everything.
Okay.
Output. No problem.
Config dumps will also help.
Yep. I'll do that. No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else in the last 2 minutes? All right. If not, the meeting is adjourned, and everyone have a great day.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks.